Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. We got a very busy Tuesday coming up. We're going to dig straight into today's Q&A. This is with Teja. Teja was working with a client in some supine activities, was having a lot of difficulty capturing some muscle behavior at the hip and pelvis area. And one of the things that we always want to remember is that we have movement that occurs from proximal to distal and distal to proximal. And so if we're talking about, say, an early propulsive representation, so I'm just going to grab a foot here. So we grab our foot, and one of the key elements here is capturing that first metatarsal head and medial heel contact, because this would indicate our first superimposition of internal rotation on the external rotation space. And this is where one of those keys that we went with Teja, to assure that those cues were intact. If you don't get those cues, it doesn't mean you're not going to recruit those muscles, but you're not going to do it with relative motion, and that's what we're trying to chase under these circumstances. We'll see elements of this in some of the shoe literature, where we see that the foot behavior really doesn't change all that much depending on what type of a shoe you're wearing. However, the proximal musculature does change its behavior relative to the sensation that we're getting from the ground up. So again, the early propulsive phase becomes very, very important under these circumstances. Again, the first superimposition of internal rotation on the external rotation, which is our relative movement. So Teja, thank you for asking this question. You're going to help a lot of people with this. If you would like to participate in a 15-minute consultation, please go to askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com. Please put 15-minute consultation in the subject line so I don't delete it. Include your question in the email if you would please. We will arrange that at our mutual convenience. Everybody have an outstanding Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow.
Okay. And then just one part of the question, I just wanted to ask, I have a client that she's a neuro and is really compressed. So we started doing like all this supine activities, but the thing is that I found out that whatever exercise we did, even if it was hook lying or cross connect, the left upper hamstring was not getting activated so that it would pull the pelvis back, even when we were doing chopping. And she just did some of the chopping on the right just so I could compare the left hamstring seemed like really soft, like not activated. So I was just wondering how or could I get that upper part of the hamstring activated and get that posterior orientation?
Okay. Well, first of all, you don't want posterior orientation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I knew what you meant, but I just wanted to say that out loud since the words were said. Okay. So when you're talking about proximal hamstring, what do you mean? It's a big area. There's a lot of stuff there. So what are you not capturing?
Like when I was observing and like palpating, I thought like the inside part of the hamstrings was not doing the job that it should.
Awesome. Okay. So now we have clarity. Okay. What is she lacking at that hip? What is she lacking, ER or IR?
ER.
You had a 50-50 shot.
And I blew it.
You didn't blow it. We just learned something. That's all. Okay. So she's got to be able to internally rotate. And we're talking about the hip now. Okay. Relative to the pelvis. So the thing that you're going to want to do is making sure that she's capturing her distal to proximal cues. So you got to start with her foot representation and say, okay, do I really have the best foot representation? So when you're teaching people to internally rotate the hip, what foot contacts do you need to ensure you're recruiting the right musculature?
Medial heel and the base of the toe.
Yeah, the first metatarsal head and medial heel. Now, does that mean that you give up the fifth metatarsal head and the lateral heel?
No.
Absolutely not. Okay, because that would be an orientation of the pelvis to create the IR, which is what some people do, right? And so this is why we talk about recapturing early representations, because that's that first superimposition of internal rotation. This is where you can easily teach somebody to capture those foot cues, because there's less load on the foot, and so they can actually feel things. Like when you push on a foot really hard, you tend to not feel things as well. And so now you got to teach her how to capture those foot cues first. Because if she doesn't have a foot cue, ain't no way she's going to create the proximal representation that you're looking for. So you need that proximal IR. You're going to have to do it through the foot first. Teach her that. And then she should be able to sense when she captures that, because the muscle activity will increase dramatically. And if you're palpating, if you're doing that, if you're palpating, you'll know right away. And you'll be able to tell if it's an orientation or not, because she'll push the inside of her foot into the ground, but you still won't feel the muscle activity that you want, because she'll still be ER'd and just oriented over that foot. Okay.
So since she has more feet towards pronation, could I help her with the band technique that you described a few calls ago to Zach, where you start at the lateral ankle and go over the calcaneus up to the tibia?
Like to teach her how to hold position?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
just to help her with the Luca tape.
Oh yeah. You could do that if if you have those skills, absolutely. Sure, why not? Yeah, because so think about this for a second. So she's got a positive pistol test. I'm sorry, she's got a positive apple test. Right? Like, so this, like, you just described somebody that has a positive apple test. So how can you constrain that foot? There's like any number of ways to constrain the foot. So she doesn't promote the orientation. So she's orienting into IR. You need to teach her the foot contact so she doesn't orient. So she's capturing relative motion, IR, superimposed on a position of ER. So she needs an early, she needs an early representation in that foot. She needs an early representation in that hand. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You get it? You totally get it.